All right, hello, all you lovely people. I am Purple Thickman, and today we're going to be checking out Super Sammy Roll. This is a cartoon-ish 3D platformer. It is a lot of fun, as you'll see. We're going to be playing through the first world, including the first boss fight. Checking out the game, we're going to be talking about all of the different mechanics and stuff that's going on in the game. This is going to be following a semi-structured review format. So I have a couple points that I want to talk about, and as you can see, I've played through the game a lot here. But we're going to be playing a new game. We're going to be playing on normal. There's as you can see, a couple different settings. Relaxed, which is kind of like, you know, the casual, no time limit on any of the levels, so you can kind of play around and do whatever you want. Normal, there's a time limit, and there's checkpoints, and then advanced is the normal time limit, but you don't have any checkpoints. You have to do every level in one go. So we're going to be playing on normal. It's the intended difficulty. It's the one that I actually think is the most fun. Advanced is definitely challenging, but not the most fun challenging way, I would say. Alright, so this is the story here. The sun shines as marshmallow-shaped clouds travel across the clear blue sky. Sammy, who is the lizard friend here, who we will be playing as, and Vera, our flying squirrel companion, enjoy a day on the beach. Meanwhile, far beyond the molten sea, the evil Albert VII is in a brooding mood. So this is Albert VII. He is the main bad guy of the game, and he's basically fancy Diddy Kong. He is not pleased at the lack of exotic creatures in his collection of stolen relics. He's a very evil guy. He's also, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, he's very Robotnik in the way that he is portrayed in the game. Determined to correct this awful situation, he travels far to capture the rarest of pets he can find with his pesky drones. Sammy and Vera don't see him coming. So Albert VII swoops in, snatches Vera, and steals her. Sammy's unable to react, and she is taken away. And this is how our adventure starts. Sammy's worried about his friend, so he seeks out to save her. And this is the first level. You get kind of right into it. This owl, like I said, I've played through the whole game, and I have no idea who this owl is, why they're the end point here. But this is the tutorial level. As you can see, you can look around, you can jump. There are secrets, in fact. These raspberries are the collectible of the game. There is, I believe, just one raspberry in every level, and then if we hit the owl here, that is stage clear. And then you'll always get a clear time. You'll get a rank, which goes from, I believe, E is the lowest rank. It might be D, all the way up through A. And then there is an additional like secret rank called Maestro, which is for when you've mastered a level. And the Maestro ranks are they are no joke. On that first level, in order to get a Maestro rank, you have to beat that level in under a second. This is just letting us know that there is a semi-auto and a manual version of the camera. And as you can see now, we have a timer counting down, but the coins here give you 1 additional second every time you collect one of them. So coins are very important in this game. They're used as currency, so you can buy things with them, but they're also important to pick up for the long levels where you are going from, you know, maybe checkpoint to checkpoint, and you need to get all of the coins in order to make it. And that really comes into play a lot in the later levels. You won't see that too much probably in these first set of levels. They're not you have more than enough time to get from place to place. So these eggs are the checkpoints. All you have to do is pass by them. And then if you do die, or if you mess up and you want to reset, it will reset you back at the checkpoint. All right, so let's talk about gameplay. And I'm going to be talking about 5 different points here. Gameplay, visuals, sound, design, which would be level design, things like that, how well the game utilizes the mechanics that it gives you. And then I'm going to be talking about an additional point, which is not really for everyone, and that's going to be speedrunner potential, because I am primarily a speedrunner. So that's something that I care about. And a lot of the games that I play, I also speedrun. So if we get this cat here, we'll get the strawberry for this level. And then I'm going to be scoring all of those out of 5, and then I've done some fancy math to then convert all of those scores to a out of 10 final score, which would be the overall score of the game. So as far as gameplay goes, I absolutely love this game. The tutorials are really well done. They're not super in your face. They basically just tell you what buttons do what, and that's it. You can skip them if you know how to play the game. There's no cutscenes related to them. They're very there if you need them, which I really enjoy. Additionally, I love how unique this game feels as a 3D platformer. There's a lot of 3D platformers out there. It's a very saturated market, but I think this game does a lot really to stand out on its own. It's very momentum based. So as you'll see, and as you probably noticed, Sami, is when he moves, he gets into this ball, and this is very, very like heavy. He's a very thick character. So it's very easy to roll off, or some of the later levels, there's a very precise movement that you have to do on very thin platforms. And it's really easy to mess that movement up just because of how momentum-based everything is. So obviously you have your rolling, you have your jump, and the jump is a variable height, so the longer you hold it, the longer you stay in the air. There is also a ground pound, which lets you bounce a little bit higher. There's a short cooldown on it, as you can see. I flash white, and that lets me know that I've got my ground pound back. And then something that we haven't seen yet is, and this is a very important mechanic in the game, is Sami can also use his tongue as not quite a grappling hook, but you can use it to attach to areas and then pull yourself to them. And then you can also cancel a... Whoop. This is a very cycle-based level. You can also cancel a tongue grab here into a jump, which is something that we'll probably be doing later on to get a little bit faster through some of these areas. For this one, this is just a very cycle-based level. Some of the levels are a little bit slower in this first world, just so you can get used to how Sami works and all that. The game is really well designed, but it is a little bit weird to control Sami at the very beginning, because you have to get used to the way that he moves. And that is one of the tongue cancels. They're not super flashy, but they are very useful for getting around the levels, and they do eventually become required. But the game does give you a couple levels to practice them, and it teaches you how to do them and all that. So as far as gameplay goes, I would say that this game has phenomenal gameplay. It is a 5 out of 5 for me. The controlling Sami is super fun. If this was a sandbox game, it would be just as fun. The level design really lets you play with the mechanics that the devs have created for Sami. And that's, in a platformer, the best thing you can do is, in my opinion, is design your levels around the way that your character is unique compared to other, characters in platformers. So if you have a running and a jumping character, but they also have, this crazy tongue thing that they can do, you want to design a lot of your harder challenges around that. And this game does a phenomenal job of that, especially in the later levels where there's a lot of chaining tongue jumps together in order to get through some of the more challenging levels. And as you can see, it's very versatile. We can just go around this and then use the tongue and tongue jumps to get through some of these challenges. So the levels are also pretty open to, we can skip all of this stuff, are pretty open to player interpretation of how you want to get through them. Which is, whether that was intentional or not, it's great design by the devs. The overworld is also very, Super Mario Brothers. There's also little splits in the paths so that you can pick, one of two levels, and then these will reconverge after this. So there's basically, you can pick the level that you think might be easier or harder, depending on how you want to play. And then the rush and bump levels, these show up all throughout the game. They're basically like a series of levels, and they're normally the more difficult levels. They always have a 10-second time limit from the beginning, and that makes them a lot more difficult for sure. All these bumpers are also no joke. If you hit them, they just launch you, and there's pretty much no way to recover. Your run-ins is basically just dead. But as you can see, there's those skinny little strips. Those show up a lot more in the later levels, and they're very difficult to roll across, especially if there's enemies attacking you or obstacles in the way. But yeah, just to recap, gameplay, definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. And then we'll talk about visuals. So I love the way that this game looks. It's very cartoony. They really lean into the it's not a serious game by any means. And some of the enemies, as you've seen, there's the turtles that are like, Dragon Ball Z characters. Oop. There's this like dog cannon, and they shoot missiles at you. These these tornado guys. It's very cartoony. It's very adorable. Sami is a great character. I love the visuals of this game. They're not super, over the top or anything like that. So I would say the visuals in this game are just a solid, 4 out of 5. They're very well done, but nothing, super groundbreaking. That being said, let's move on to the sound of this game. This game has an all-right soundtrack. It's nothing, offensive to the ears. It's very catchy. It fits the game. But it's nothing super phenomenal. It's good. But that's about it. So I gave the sound design in this game, just a solid 3 out of 5. It's good. People are definitely gonna, you'll like it. You'll probably bump along to it while you're playing the game, but that's really about it. I don't find myself humming along, when I'm not playing the game. So just a very good classic soundtrack. And then let's get this cat UFO. And then the level design, that is going to be essentially the final thing that I'm going to be talking about for the review outside of the speedrun potential of this game, which is a category separate from the actual review. It's just something that I'm going to talk about in addition to everything else. So the level design in this game, like I said, is really well done around the mechanics of this game. However, there are some issues that I found with the level design, and it's mostly, unfortunately, with the boss fights in this game. As you'll see, we'll be getting to the first boss fight pretty soon, and in my opinion, the boss fights are pretty underwhelming for the most part. They definitely break up the typical gameplay, but I don't think that it's for the best, unfortunately. And we'll talk about that more once we get to the first boss. And all the bosses are Albert IV in various machines or mechanical forms. They all require 3 hits, you know, the classic, to defeat. But they're they're pretty long. They're very RNG based because they do require the boss to work with you, almost, in order to defeat them. So you can be, you know, running around in a circle just waiting for the boss to do something for you to be able to actually defeat them, and that can get quite frustrating. You know, running around in circles around a boss. So while the level design generally is really well done, there's a couple levels where the game either drags on a little bit too long, or they're just insanely difficult and not a super fun way, like a very like a challenging in a good way, kind of. If that makes any sense, which is, I think, a uniquely platformer problem. But those are very few and far between. It's most of my complaints about this game are with the boss fights. There's only I believe 5 boss fights total, so it's not, you know, that big of a deal. Once every world you have to deal with a boss fight that isn't super compelling. That being said, I gave the design a 3.5 out of 5 because, like I said, most of the levels are designed well. There's a couple that aren't my favorite, and then the boss fights just almost got hit there. I feel like the game would almost be better if the boss fights were either not there or changed a little bit to be more in line with the platformer spirit, I think, which is where this game really shines. This is a phenomenal 3D platformer. All right, so the final category, and this is outside of the final review score, which I'm going to be giving this game. And that's perfect because we're getting into the Tower of Chaos, which is the final level here. So the speedrun potential of this game. This game is an absolutely phenomenal speedrun. It's so much fun. There's so many skips that you can do, and I'll show you right here. There's like, typically, we'll just go ahead and reset this level. Typically, you'd have to go around this tower, and it's very long. See how much time you have to do it. If I can get the rhythm right, you can actually just climb right up the tower if you're good at the basically like tongue wall jumps here. And you can do that a lot faster if you're actually in practice. And then this is the first fight with Albert VII. But this game, aside from, as you can see, the only parts where this game drags in the speedrun at all are the boss fights here. But that being said, if you're speedrunning a 3D platformer, especially something like this, it's very fast-paced. You're doing a lot of very difficult, very precise moves in order to move quickly through all of the levels. You know, you're going to be beating most of the levels, at least in the first world, in under 10 seconds. So the boss fights are actually a much-needed break in the course of the speedrun. So casual play, they're not very nice, but they are a welcome slowing down in the speedrun. So this game, easily a 5 out of 5 for speedrunning. I have done a couple runs of this game, and they're super fun. Even if you're messing stuff up, the game isn't super frustrating with the way that you're dying. You know, a lot of the issues are with you playing as the character and not, you know, the game being unfair to you. And that is Albert the Seventh defeated for the first time. So we defeat him. He manages to escape. He moves on to the next world, which is the desert world. Like I said, there's 5 worlds. There's, you know, you're kind of like green zone, Garden Hill zone, desert. There's an ice world. There's a kind of like dark cityscape world. And they're all a lot of fun. The desert world has some very unique mechanics. There's sand that slows you down. But one of the things that I really like about this game is the shop. So with the coins, this is where you can buy different colors for Super Sami. You can buy accessories. These cost raspberries. There's a closet where you can equip all your stuff. You can buy secrets. So there's secret levels throughout the worlds. I believe there's 3 secret exits in each world, and those lead to secret levels, which are very difficult. But my favorite part about this is some of the accessories here are just cosmetic. So the mustache, while it is cute, it doesn't really do anything. But some of them do actually change the game, and the pixel glasses are my absolute favorite. So let's go back to, let's do the Russian bump. So if you equip the glasses, which I forgot to do, they'll actually change the way that the game looks and make it all like 90s, like, you know, PlayStation 1, like 3D, you know, N64 NES kind of like, I guess not NES, but, you know, just like 3D retro looking. And I absolutely love this look. And then for the speedrun, you can do stuff like this, retry. Now we're at this checkpoint. So like I said, this game has a ton of, even if you're not speedrunning, there's a lot of skips and stuff that you can find in this game that are very satisfying to do. And I'll show off one more of the big speedrun tricks that you can do after I beat this level on one of the earlier levels, just to show off the potential that this game has. I believe it is Expressway Works. And we'll see just a big skip here. Okay, so normally you'd have to go all the way down there and around and loop around, but if you utilize the ground pound here, you can make it across this and skip all of this. And then one of the good things about the ground pound is if you hit anything at an angle, it absolutely launches you. So typically you would want to get a good angle boost up there, but if you miss it, there's a backup in the speed run where you can hit this right here and just launch yourself this way and get up to max speed immediately. And there's a bunch of different places throughout the run of this game where, you know, you're ground pounding into corners and these pixel perfect ways in order to get these massive boosts. And let's see if I can get the boosts here. Yeah, to skip, you know, little bits here and there. But this game has phenomenal potential for like shortcuts and all that, which are still being found by the community. But it's just so much fun to play this game. So overall, I give Super Sami Roll, with meticulous math being done to figure out how the scores all convert from a 5 out of 5 scale to a 10 out of 10 scale. Super Sami Roll gets a 7.7 out of 10 for me. I think it's a phenomenal game. It's worth the price. I believe it's $15 on Steam. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But it's definitely worth it. All of the levels are super fun. They don't get very difficult. Oh, excuse me. They don't get very difficult until about World 5, or not World 5, World 3, which if I remember correctly, is the Ice World. And then you have to deal with ice physics, which, you know, always make a platformer a lot more difficult. But this game's absolutely phenomenal. Cannot recommend it enough. And one of the cool things about this game, which I'll show off real quick, is after you beat the game, you unlock a bunch of different modes. So you unlock a speedrun mode, which is basically just playing the game on advanced, so no checkpoints, and with a timer. But you also have Vera's quest, which after you save Vera, and this is a little bit of spoilers, but after you save Vera, then you can play through all of the levels as her, and she is a flying squirrel, so she doesn't have the tongue trick that Sami does. She actually has the ability to fly. So instead of the tongue, you have this glide, as you can see, and all of the levels are completely redesigned for Vera's character. And it's so cool. It's basically like, it is totally for replayability, but it's also, I messed it up there. But it's basically a whole nother game that you get to play with Vera right here. And I'm really glad that the devs did that. Her levels are really hard. But that is Super Sami Roll. So thanks everyone for checking this out with me.